crazy that they do that? What? It's a huge difference. Yeah. And so, especially girls, we look at these images and we see these girls and we try to be like them and we try to make our hair look like that and our eyes and all this stuff. And ultimately, we're never going to get there because it's not real. Okay? And our generation spends more time cultivating outward appearance than we do a heart after God. And so the first lie I think we believe is who I am is how I look. And the second one is who I am is what I accomplish. And if you buy into this lie, it doesn't start small. We know that we've got the stuff and we flash it loud and proud. And it could be our car, or our house, or our clothes, or our friends, or our money. And the list goes on. And for some of us, it's taken an identity crisis for us to see that what we're settling for is a false definition of value, significance, and purpose. And I think the last lie that we tend to believe in our generation is who I am is found in who I'm dating. And so we compromise who we are and who God has called us to be. And we try to fill ourselves with something that ultimately we're never going to be fulfilled from. Okay, so the first one is know who we are. And the second one is forget the what ifs. And this one's hard because our culture is so convinced that we need to focus on what is right in front of us. And there's what ifs, like what if I lose my friends, or what if I lose my reputation, or what if I mess up my words when I talk about God? And I know it's hard, but like what if the girls in our schools cared more about what God said about them than other people? Or what if guys cared more about honoring a girl than dating her? Or what if because of us stepping out in our families, your father came to know the Lord, or your mom came to know the Lord? And I know it seems kind of far out there and it's hard to see, but when we get vision and we ask God for big things, he doesn't disappoint. And when we realize that we are only on this earth for a short amount of time, and ultimately our goal is heaven and our focus is on people, we just live differently because every single person that we make eye contact with has an eternal destination, and we're called to take the name of Jesus outside of these walls. And Jeremiah 29:13-14 says, when you get serious about finding me and you want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. And so we may live in an impossible world, but we serve a possible God. Okay, so number one is know who we are. Number two, forget the what ifs. And number three is realize my life is not my own. And so back to the story about Rachel. Rachel lived to please the Lord, and she knew that when she died, she'd be with the Lord. And on April 20th, 1999, Rachel Joy Scott was sitting on the lawn of her high school, Columbine High School, when two students walked up with guns and bombs. And Rachel Joy Scott was sitting on the lawn, and a former classmate was one of these guys and put a gun to her head and said, "Do you still believe in God?" And her response was immediately, "You know I do." And she was killed instantly. And that's kind of harsh, isn't it? But the day she died, she carried around a notebook that said, "I won't be labeled as average." And Rachel had not been labeled as average, and not because of the tragic way she died, but she's remembered as so much more than average because of the way that she lived, inspiring others to live life to its fullest. And so she got it. She knew that her life wasn't her own, and she lived in a way that was pleasing to the Lord. And she faced the same things that we do, but she still lived her life, rising up to the calling of God in her life. And there's a quote that was in her journal that says, "Rise up and see the kind of effect that you have on the lives around you. You just might start a chain reaction." And her funeral was the most watched event and seen in history up until that point. And she wasn't a world leader. She wasn't a famous actress who packed out theaters. She was a normal teenage girl who realized that her life is not her own. And she dreamed of her life reaching thousands, and because of her story, people are still coming to God today. And so, Switch, we were born for greatness. And I don't know if you know that today, but God has put us where we are for a reason. And what if our generation, what if Switch was defined by the times that we stood for his presence and we worshiped God when no one else was? And we would start a chain reaction. And it's time to get serious, y'all. And my prayer is that we become blameless and pure, that we become children of God in a broken and deprived generation in which we shine like the stars of the universe. Because we live in a generation full of brokenness and confusion, but we serve and know a God of hope and purpose. So we're about to go into a time of prayer. So if you guys will go ahead and bow your head and close your eyes for me. There might be some of you in here tonight who are in this state of brokenness. And maybe this is your first time to church, or maybe you come every week. But tonight God's showing you the way that he loves you and the way that he's instilled purpose in you. And I don't know if you know this, but you were fearfully and wonderfully made. And the King is enthralled by you. And you were justified through faith. You have direct access to the throne of God. You have value because you bear his image. And so maybe tonight God is showing you that, and tonight you're ready to try this thing out.